really excited to be sharing this project with you. It's actually an upcycle project, and I'm going to be using a jar that normally I would throw away in the kitchen, and we're going to combine that with some beautiful air dry clay porcelain-like roses to create kind of a vintage chic project. So let me show you all the materials that you'll need to get started. First of all, I'm using craft porcelain. This is a cold porcelain clay. It comes in a tub, and it comes in this off-white color. This is the jar that I'm using to decorate, and it came from some horseradish. So you can use any jar that you want, any shape that you particularly like. Also, I have just a little container of water, very small container of water, and a clay shaper. This is a rubber tip tool, and as you can see, mine's well loved. But if you don't have this kind of a tool, a knitting needle works just fine. Alright, before we actually begin our roses, what you're going to want to do is decoupage some papers on top of your lid, or you can paint over it, whatever you want to do to cover up all the wording, and you want to make sure that you do the sides. Do that first, because that way you can let this lay off to the side and dry while we create our roses. Next, you'll want to grab a piece of the clay. This is air dry clay again. It will shrink a little bit as it dries, but it's just as the name implies, it's air dry. So once you open it to air, and once it's exposed to air, it begins its drying process. That means you might want to have a little paper towel, a little wet paper towel laying around that you can wrap some of the extra clay you're not using right away up in it, and that keeps it nice and moist. If it tends to feel a little dry to you, you can add just a little dab of water with your finger and then work that in, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. We're not going to be using any more clay than like a pea-shaped little ball. So they're just little pinches between your fingers, the amount of clay that we're going to use each time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to eventually roll this into a ball. My fingers. Doesn't have to be a perfect ball. And then I'm going to press it flat. And you notice as I massage it between my two fingers here, I'm actually flattening it and I'm stretching it. And I'm stretching it and elongating it side to side. Okay, so that's what you want. And you want this top part here, which may be the bottom to you, very thin. So I just kind of press that with my fingers, just like that. The next thing to do to create the center portion of your rose is you fold the corner over and then roll from end to end. And this is how you can create a really, really easy rosebud. See how super simple that was? Super simple. And then you can come back, see that there kind of broke a little bit, but I can reattach that. There we go. And I can refine these petals, because this clay, when it dries so hard and so firm that it will resist any kind of breakage, even if those edges are really thin. So at this point we've created our rosebud, and you can stop at this point if you want to create a bunch of little rosebuds just like I have here, or you can continue to make a bigger rose. And the way you do that, we're going to create the petals now. And generally I put 3 to 5 petals on each rose. My clay's just a little, it gets kind of hot in this room with all the lights and everything that I have going on, so sometimes it dries out just on the outside. There we go. Okay, again, I'm working with just a pea-sized ball of clay, and my hands are a little sticky. This time, instead of pressing it flat and stretching it out, I'm going to press it flat and rotate it. And that way, it maintains kind of a circular shape. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. In fact, we don't want a perfect circle at all, because things in nature aren't always perfect, are they? So, you'll see that a little bit of clay goes a long, long, long way. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just ruffling those edges, thinning them out. So this is our petal. And now we're going to apply it to the base of, or the middle portion of our flower. Now, remember when we wrapped it around, it ended right here. So this line right here, we're going to match up with the center of our petal. Press it over, and then press side down and side down. The reason you don't want to press too high on your sides is because you won't be able to open up your rose later on. And then you're going to come in and you're going to ruffle and refine. Now let's put another petal on. We're going to do the exact same thing. Moisten up my clay. This clay dries to a beautiful porcelain-like finish. I think you'll really be amazed. And you don't necessarily have to seal it, but I wouldn't get it in contact with any kind of moisture or water or anything like that. But it'll last for years and years. Alright, so we're going to shape this petal the same way that we did before. Feather out those edges. And this is just a repeat, really, of what we did the last time. We ended our rose right here, so we're going to take this line right here and match it up with the center of our next petal and press it down side to side. Okay. Now you're going to keep doing this over and over again until your rose is as big as you want. And generally, for the most part, I put 3, 5, or 7 petals in because I'm making kind of smaller roses. But you can certainly make as many petals as you want and open your rose as big as you want. So this is just a repeat process around and around. You'll notice as you work with this, you get a little tail, and all you have to do is just come in with a pair of scissors and just snip that off. And you can use this part again. Now I'll just take that part that I snipped off and let's create some of the leaves. So I'm going to start out again with the ball. And I'm going to press this ball flat. This time I want kind of a point as I feather out. And I'm going to lay it onto my table. Now with the clay shaper, you're going to draw straight down. And you'll see, you just go over it. Over and over and over, and if that part just flaked off, that's okay. So I can press that back together. Okay, and start over. It's better to go over with lighter strokes more often than it is one big heavy stroke. So as you can see, I'm letting the clay grab that clay shaper and it's bringing it down to the edges. It's making those little veins. So imagine the veins on a leaf, or maybe you can imagine drawing the lines on a feather. This is what you're going to want. And it's okay that it's all roughly right here. So now you're going to take and you're going at the bottom, at the rounded edge, you're going to press it together and then press it flat. I usually leave these little tails on because that helps to glue it in. Okay? So you're going to make several leaves and several flowers, generally 3s, 5s. Make odd number flowers and leaves. Now what you're going to do, once you get all those together, I'm going to show you on this piece that I have already finished here. I've decoupaged, as you can see, even the edges, and painted. And all I've done is I've arranged my flowers and I've glued them on with some tacky glue. You're going to want to let this tacky glue dry for at least 24 hours before you move it. That way you can make sure that all your roses are in place. But I have a finished one and I can't wait to show you what it looks like.